Good morning, everybody. So have you guys ever had a problem where one of your plants just does not seem to be thriving? Like it is just staying small and little even though it should be growing at like a normal rate? And maybe sometimes these are things that you've never planted before, so you may not know exactly how slow they grow, because some things do take a very long time to grow. Herbs are notorious for taking a long time to get going. But some plants should grow fairly quickly, and sometimes they just seem like they have stopped growing. This is called they are stunted. Something in their environment has stopped them from thriving. Now, sometimes it's a popular notion that if your plant is super stunted, just to toss it out and start fresh because it's not going to thrive. However, I'm here to tell you that is not always the case, and sometimes you just can't give up on your stunted plants. So, first question, why do plants get stunted? Lots of reasons. So it could be too much water, too little water, not enough nutrients. It could be bad soil. It could be weather. Weather is a big one. If it is a warm weather plant and a freeze comes in, the plant will just like freeze in place. It will be like, I am not gonna grow anymore. I am scared. So how can we save these stunted plants? Okay, so there are some things that honestly probably it's best not to grow if they are stunted. Things that have very short growing periods. So things like squash would be an example, or maybe even like a radish. Something that it has a very short time from start to end of the plant, and if it's been stunted for most of that, it's probably not going to come back. But there are things, especially perennials. So we're talking tomatoes, peppers, artichokes, things that come back year after year if you live in a warm climate. Those things can be saved. And this is kind of trial and error because there's also things like that are not perennial but are long season, like they take a long time to grow. Like I have planted stunted broccoli in the ground and it has popped up and bloomed into a beautiful big broccoli plant. So how do we save that? How do we help these plants? Well, we need to figure out what they need. What are they missing? And oftentimes we don't know what it is because we don't know what set them off in the first place. So this is, again, like trial and error. So let me show you guys some examples of some stunted plants that I have. So we've got first up our romaine. This thing is months old. This thing is as old as this romaine. Something happened. Now you could say, well, maybe it's overcrowded because there's 4 in here, but you can plant lettuce pretty close together, and yeah, I have other pots with just as many in there and they thrived. So what happened to this one? I don't know. Something like this lettuce, because it grows kind of so quickly and you get a harvest so quickly, you don't really want to save this. Like, at least I wouldn't, because I could literally start seeds and have them at this size in 2 weeks and they wouldn't have the problem that these guys are having. And most likely when I have tried to save like severely stunted lettuce, if they're little stunted, like this guy was just slightly stunted, so I just gave him some fresh soil and he perked right back up. But if they're really stunted, they're probably gonna go to seed if it's getting warmer out before you can save them. So lettuce is probably not a good candidate for this. Next up I have my cabbage. This cabbage is the same age as my giant cabbages that I already harvested. Like, they're the same age, and this guy is little, and I know he's in a little pot, but I have had cabbages get much bigger than this in a size pot. So I really don't think the soil was the best, and he just wasn't very happy. But I took his brothers and sisters and I planted them even though they were stunted, and they have taken off. So things like cabbages or broccolis, they're a great candidate for trying this. And really, I just think they need to be in the ground. They need to be in the ground in a good plot of soil and they will begin to thrive. So part of the problem is if you leave things in pots too long or in your seed starting trays too long, that can stunt them. But again, that's not always the issue, and I will show you an example of that. The artichoke. The artichoke, look at him. He's tiny. He's months and months old. He's teeny tiny. He has a giant pot. There is no way this little tiny guy grew out of this pot. But again, he's missing something. He's not happy. So he had brothers and sisters. And what I did was I gave his brothers and sisters new soil, different kind of soil, potting soil, because I was a little suspicious of this stuff. It was very woody. It wasn't great. Just something in it he was not happy with. So I changed his soil, and lo and behold, look at him. This is his brother. He was just as stunted as that, and within 3 weeks it went from that to this. And this is a perennial, so even that little guy I'm not going to give up on quite yet, because he might grow back. Okay, so we've looked at some examples of some things that are not doing so great, and some things that are recovering, that are starting to grow again. So I can't really tell you exactly what to do for your plants, because if it's a cold issue, a weather issue, a soil issue, that's kind of something you have to experiment with. So these are very much what I have experimented with. I have put them into different pots. I have put some in the ground, and honestly, the ones that I put in the ground, even if they were in a pot big enough, the ones in the ground did the best. They took off. I had some tomatoes that I think I actually still have one here. Yes, I do. Little stunted tomato. This would be fine if he was like a couple weeks old, but this guy is much older than that, probably 2 or 3 months old. And I took his brothers and sisters and I put them in the ground, and they are like this tall now. So that's an example of one that it just needed to be in the ground. It needed something that I could not give it in this environment. So you don't have to throw away your stunted seedlings. You can save them. You just have to give them a little TLC and figure out what they need. Okay, let's go look at some of the plants that have been planted into the ground, have recovered, and have started their journey to full grown. Okay, so we've got our serrano. Now, this guy, you may think, that's such a small plant, but no, you don't understand. This guy was like as tall as this little weed here for almost a year. He was like this. And he was stunted actually in the ground. He wasn't even stunted like in a pot. He was in the ground. But this area doesn't have very good soil here, so he just didn't have what he needed. But I just left him there. I gave him a chance. And this year, he is starting to spread up and out. And I've actually already gotten serranos from him. And he has continued to grow. He's put on some new growth even just this last week. So he totally took off after a while, and he's going to continue to grow. But I could have literally given up on him and ripped him out, but I didn't. I gave him a chance. He's a survivor. I'm a survivor. Same thing with his little brother over here. I don't even know what type of pepper this is, but it was just this little nub, and now he's starting to grow. And he's putting on peppers. He just needs a little more love and attention, and he can thrive too. Here's that stunted broccoli I told you guys about. Does this look stunted to you? No, it doesn't. It looks like a totally normal broccoli. But this thing was this little tiny short little nub for the longest time. But I put him in the ground, and he just took off. He's doing great. Let's look at a tomato. So do you see this terribly stunted, pitiful looking tomato? Yeah, it's changing a freaky color. And this thing is months old. Tomatoes usually grow really easily. I think in this particular situation, there's something up with this soil. All the plants that I planted in this soil that I got from the store, they didn't do well. They were stunted. They kind of have this weird coloring and this curling. So yeah, I don't know what's going on here. But I took one of these guys and I planted him in the ground about a month ago, and let me show you what happened. Do you guys see this? I mean, that's the mustard back there, but look at this. This is a beautiful, healthy tomato. Look at that. His color is good. He put on so much growth. And literally, I just put him in the ground here and fertilized him maybe once or twice in the month and a half he's been here about. Yeah, and he's doing so good. He's even putting on little flowers. Yeah, so who would have thought that that pitiful little stunted tomato that I just stuck in the ground here would start thriving once he had the right kind of environment. But he did. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I hope you guys have good luck in saving your poor little stunted plants. Until next week, you guys, happy gardening.
I pull into your driveway, it's a Saturday night. You look like $1,000,000 wearing that dress I like.